Okay, if you've ever seen any of my videos, you've seen that I usually set up my camera tests out here on my back patio. And I use that street sign way out there as my target. Today we're going to be looking at the Canon 200 to 800 compared to the Canon 100 to 500. I've got the 100 to 500 mounted on the R7, and I've got the 200 to 800 mounted on the R5. And I want to compare to see what the differences are. I already own the 100 to 500. I want to see if the 200 to 800 is something I want to use for the R5. So I'm going to compare the results and see which one's sharper. Alright, so I've got the Canon R5 set at in manual at 1/80th of a second for the shutter. It's most open at 6.3 at the 200 mark. I've got both of the cameras in ISO 100. The R7 is 160 and f/4.5. So we're going to take a test picture. Let me do it with so that I get no camera shake. I'm going to set it on a timer. I'll do a 2-second. That should be fine. Let's do this. Okay, so let's start with this one. And then we'll take it with this one. Okay, now I'm going to zoom all the way out to 800. That's quite a reach. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. At 500, this is an APS-C equivalent of 800. And right now I can tell you I'm going to have to realign so that I can get centered on the bolt head because these are not pointing in the right direction. So I'll come back. Okay, now I have them aligned so that the bolt in the middle of the street sign is my center of attention. Okay, I've got that on both. So I am going to, and we're still at, let's see. Now we're at f9, so I am going to raise this up to 1140. I'm staying with the ISO 100 on purpose. Obviously in the field for wildlife I wouldn't be doing that, but for this test I'm doing this. And since I'm at f7.1 here, I'm going to drop this to 180. So basically double. And I'm going to do this one first. And then I'm going to do this one. Okay, so I'm going to take these in and compare the details. Okay, so obviously there is a huge size difference here. The R7 on the right with the 100 to 500 and the R5 on the left with the 200 to 800. And obviously there's a little bit of a weight difference too. Not the 200 to 800, as heavy as some people say, doesn't feel as heavy to me as I thought it would be. Maybe it's just balanced well, I don't know, but it felt fine to me. So I'm going to open these files up and I'll come back to you. So I'm opening these files up in Lightroom and I'm going to take a look at them. So on your screen you can see that I've got opened up the Canon R5 at 200 millimeters on the 200 to 800. And if I zoom in 100%, you can see it looks pretty crisp. So let's go to the Canon R7 with the 100 to 500 at 100. And you can see it's a little bit further out. It doesn't quite make it to 200 millimeters on the short end, but it still looks pretty crisp. On the 100 to 500 or 200 to 800 on the Canon R5 at 800, this is what the image looks like. You can almost make out what the bolt head reads. Not quite. You can, if you really struggle, you can make out THE, it looks like at the very bottom, but I can't tell you. It looks like 3 C's, the last 2 on the top. But overall, the detail doesn't look too bad. But let's go to the 100 to 500, which should be the same focal length on the R7. Oh, it's much crisper. Yeah, you can see a lot more details. Looks like F5, 33C, and THE at the bottom. So the advantage here is that I get a faster shutter speed on the R7 with the 100 to 500 than I would with the R5. Although looking at this 1:1, you do get a little bit more than 800. I don't know which one's more accurate, but you get a little bit more tele with the 200 800, but it is just a little bit softer. Now, that could be because I'm at 1/40th, where the 100 to 500 was 1/80th. Maybe. Or maybe it's just that much sharper because it's an L lens. I don't know. But I'm going to take both these lenses out to the Apopka Wildlife Reserve tomorrow and put them both through the tests. The advantage of doing it on the R5 is you've got more buffer. Of course, you get to use a CF Express B, so you don't have to wait forever to unload your files. But and the focusing should be about the same, but the rolling shutter on the R7 is worse than on the R5. So it's got a give and a take. So we're going to see what the action does. This is, of course, a still image, so that's easy to test, but moving subjects will be the real test. So we'll find out more tomorrow. Okay, we're driving through the Apopka Wildlife Reserve. Say hi.
Hey.
And we've got some good pictures. We're going to take them home and edit them. Penny's using the 100 to 500 on her R6 II, and I'm using the 200 to 800 on my R5. You gonna hold it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we got some good pictures. Let me zoom around here so you can see what we're looking at. It's a real nice day out here. Penny says don't drive off the road because there's a heck of a drop off here. But tons of alligators out today. A lot of anahingas, a lot of egrets, and they got a couple warblers, so we'll see what happens. Alright, so I took the big 200 to 800 out to shoot the moon while I had it on rental, and so I'm showing you my screen now, and you can see that I also have the 800 RF 800 f11 lens, which is I usually use for my moon photography. And this is with the Canon R5 with a 1.4x teleconverter on the 800 f11, and it looks pretty good. But then I took the 200 800 with the 1.4 on the same tripod, and this is the image I got. Much sharper. I'm going back and forth here. This is with the 800 f11 and 800 at f13, the most open aperture, with a 1/500 shutter speed. And I could only get a 1/250 shutter speed on 800 f11. So much sharper lens. I was very impressed with that. And then for kicks, I put on the 2x teleconverter, and it was softer. So that looks more like the 800 f11 with the 1.4. But the advantage is you can zoom in even further and potentially see more detail with the 2x teleconverter. But it's just a little bit softer. That is not the optimal teleconverter for this particular lens. The 1.4 though, boy, I was really impressed with. I did not use the 1.4. Excuse me, I have a sinus infection, so I did not use the 1.4 at the Wildlife Reserve, but on the moon, fabulous, loved it. I didn't try it on the R7. I was going to try that and I forgot. But let's move on to the wildlife pictures, and I'll show you first what I took with the 200 to 800. Now, it was foggy when we got there. I mean, it was so foggy we could barely see 3 cars in front of us, and that was a little disappointing. And we wanted to get there early. They open at 7. That would have been completely useless. So we got there almost 9 o'clock, and it was still foggy, and it didn't even lift until probably 10:15 or so. So we finally got a few shots. This one I had to do a lot of dehaze on, but the alligator picture, very crisp. This is with a fog, and it still came out pretty crisp. Now, this was a little guy. He was probably only 3 feet. There was much bigger ones out there. And so we got some birds. They're also very crisp. All the shots were very sharp. And I was very pleased. In fact, I was so pleased with the lens that as soon as I got home, I just went ahead and ordered it. This was a rental lens, and I said, screw it, I'm just going to order it. So it'll be in my collection in a couple weeks. But all the bird pictures, very sharp, decent bokeh. I'm not sure what that little white dot was. It's probably just a little piece of pollen floating around in the air or something. But overall, just massively impressed with this lens. And I did try to get the same shot of some of these birds with the R7 and the 100 to 500, and I just found that the focusing system on the R5 is actually better than the R7. Even though the R7 is supposed to have a more upgraded focus system, it did not act that way. And I've used the R5 or the R7 with the 100 to 500 in Yellowstone a couple years ago, and I got great shots. So don't take what I'm saying as it's a terrible combination. It is a good combination. But the R5 with the 200 to 800 just impressed me even further. So, in fact, we got some. Oh, there's Penny. And she started out with the 100 to 400 lens, and then I switched her to the 100 to 500. Got this duck in flight. That was pretty cool. And I got this osprey up on the top of a telephone pole, having a little snack. And obviously he doesn't like some parts of the fish, so he discarded those. But just super impressed with the lens and the ability. I was actually going to buy a 600 millimeter f4 used EF art version 2. I found one on eBay for $4,500 in excellent condition, and I was going to purchase that instead. But then I thought, I'm going to rent this and just see how it works out. The ability to come back to 200 and then out to 800 is so useful when you're out shooting these things. I can't even explain it to you. For one thing, if you can't find it in your lens easily, you zoom out wide, find what you're looking for, and zoom into that target. It's much easier. But then sometimes things are so close you can't shoot at 800, so you need to be up close. Like we had alligators literally 2 feet from my car tire, and there's no way I could get those with a 600 millimeter prime. It would be just too close. But I was able to get it with the 200 800 because I pull back 300, and boom, I'm right on the alligator's head. And you'll see pictures like that coming up. But just massively impressed with the detail of this lens. I've read that people were disappointed that it was soft. That wasn't my experience. A lot of these are at 800, and the details are perfectly crisp. I don't know, maybe I'm not as perfectionist as they are. This one maybe is a little soft, but because he was moving quite a bit, and that was probably at 1/4000 shutter.
but still, you know, I'm hand holding, I'm moving these things around. I started off with a monopod, but I was moving around way too much, so it was getting in my way, so I just went handheld. And I mean, these are just great shots. This one's super cropped in, but I was just very impressed with these shots. Now, this alligator was so close to us, you can see my Jeep Gladiator in his eyeball. That's how close we were. You can't get that with a prime lens. There's just no way. You can't focus that close. And so that's the advantage of having a zoom. Sometimes you want it to be up close. Oh, there's a dragonfly on his head. Of course, that's not in focus because I was focused on his eyeball. But in fact, you can probably see it better here. Yeah, there you go. I zoomed out even further. This is probably at 200 millimeters. And you can still see my truck in his eyeball and the dragonfly on his head. But you can't do that with a prime. That's where a zoom is super handy. And look at the detail on this bird's feet. That just kills me. It looks like he's got alligator skin feet. But tons of alligators. Look at these little lovebirds. And the details were just incredibly impressive. So, in conclusion, I'm all for it. Buy this lens. If you were on the fence, rent it like I did. Find out for yourself, and you'll fall in love with it. So, that's all I have to say. Have a great day.